Most of the time, if somebody knows what they need or what they do, they're not the nicest person to work with.
Ever felt like you're swimming upstream in the world of business, just trying to stay afloat while the current pulls you under? Well, today's guest knows a thing or two about navigating the rapids. Today, we're going to welcome Caleb Attema from DC Underground. He's going to be joining us today to tell us his journey from the factory floor to the underground trenches, and it's been one wild ride. But here's the burning question. How does a guy with a walk-behind trencher and a dream turn the tide and build a thriving business in water management? Well, stay tuned, because Caleb's going to share his biggest wins, his toughest setbacks, and hopefully his secret sauce behind his marketing mojo. Trust me, you're going to want to stick around for this one. And hey, speaking of building something great, quick shout out to our sponsor, Groundbreaking Growth. If you're ready to take your business to new depths, Groundbreaking Growth has the tools and expertise to help you dig deep and reach new heights. Stick around to learn more. Caleb, thanks for joining us and being a guest on the show today.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, and I'm excited to have a Midwestern guy, man. You're just right next door in Iowa.
Yep.
Yeah, I lived in Macomb, Illinois for many, many years, and Pella actually built a facility over there. So that was kind of my first experience with the town of Pella, Iowa.
Yep. Pella Corp and Vermeer is kind of the two big things in Pella, that and the tulips. So
tulips?
Yeah. We got a tulip festival every year and all Dutch stuff. And so, yep.
That's awesome. I think it's cool how some of these small towns still hold that heritage of the settlers, the immigrants that settled and kind of built that town.
Yep. There's several Dutch communities. There's actually a Dutch community just on the other side of the river in Illinois. That's we got windmills here, but there's different types of windmills, and that's a river town. And they actually have like the water pump windmills that would, keep the fields from flooding, that kind of stuff. So I've never been over there, but I kind of, it's only like 2.5 hours from me. So I kind of want to check it out sometime.
That's cool, man. Yeah. So from the factory floor, let's talk about that.
Yeah. So I, ever since high school, wanted to be an electrician. And so I was going to actually be an electrician, and then that job fell through out of high school, and I started working at Vermeer Manufacturing for just a little under a year. And then after I got laid off from Vermeer, moved actually to Northwest Iowa for 2-3 years, and was working for an electrician up there they called themselves electrician, but all they did was like communication sites for CenturyLink. And that's where I kind of got my foot in the door with the dirt moving business. They had a bore machine, they had, fiber plow, suck vacs. They had like 3 mini excavators and 2 skid steers. And so I've always liked running equipment ever since I was a little kid. My grandpa had a farm by Yankton, South Dakota. So we'd always, I grew up in Pella, but I always felt like my most fondest memories and my core memories were at my grandpa's farm in about 5 hours away in Yankton, South Dakota. And, always liked running the tractor and different equipment that my grandpa would have on his farm. And so it's kind of a natural fit to, run equipment for Builders Electric up in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And then, but I had my now wife, and my oldest son was about 1 at the time, and they were still down in the Pella area. So I'd be traveling, 12 months out of the year for Builders, and then once a month go down and see my kid and see my wife, and very quickly figured out that was no way to live, and no way to raise a family. And faith is a very, very big part of my life. And so really felt God tugging me back to Pella, which so I ended up getting a job on more of a residential electrician, but he still did some dirt work, trenching and that kind of stuff. So I did a lot of that stuff for him. And then he ended up, I think it was about 11 months after I moved down here, he ended up closing his doors, and he was going to move to Western Iowa to be a state electrical inspector. So then at that point, it was back to the factory for me. I actually started working for LDJ, which is just outside of Pella, and they make the Thunder Creek trailers, the fuel trailers. And so I worked there from 2019 to when I went full time in the fall of 2020. In the meantime, I've always, I always wanted to start my own business. And so since I had the utility background, I'm like, well, we bought our house and I was remodeling the upstairs, and I threw a door down the window, and it smacked the gutter, the downspout. And so, a normal person would go, oh, well, I'll just buy a new downspout for it and be done with it. But I'm like, well, I don't really like those downspouts. They look ugly and they don't pull the water far enough from the house. And so my dad actually sells the walk behind trenchers that, we use. And so I borrowed one of his demos or one of his used ones, and we tiled our downspouts at our house, and light bulb came off, and I'm like, there's probably people out there that were willing to pay for, trenching and tiling, residential tiling. And so it was kind of during COVID when I got going. It was I think May of 2020 was when I got my business insurance. And all I did to start out with, I'd go on local Facebook groups, and I would, looking for trenching jobs. And then I'd give examples of, what they could hire me out for, tiling, electrical lines, gas lines. And back then, everybody and their dog was putting a he shed,
Yeah.
me shed. It was just crazy. And they always wanted electrical, natural gas, sometimes water out to those sheds. And so kept me busy. And then, it helped me kind of go, okay, these are the things I can make money at. And so really water lines and tiling or water management is kind of how we, built our business, and we've marketed towards that. And so now, we don't really do anything on the Facebook groups anymore or marketplace. We do all Facebook paid ads, and that allows us to target the more high end clients, and the clients that aren't going to complain about price, that are looking for your expertise and are willing to pay what it costs to do business.
Yeah, and I got to take a half a step back because we just went from the factory floor all the way to marketing. And I'm just looking at, as you're telling your story about working at Vermeer and then moving to do electrical work, and then seeing where you're at today with your business. And and then when you mentioned faith, I was like, well, if he hasn't even picked up on it yet, like God put him on a path to go learn about the equipment, go learn about the utilities, go learn about small business operations with working with some of these companies, and then gave him an opportunity to go, oh, you still not getting the light bulb? Let's break your downspout, and then we'll get something to pop for you. So I listen to your story, and I hear a little bit of mine in there too. And it's just funny how, like, in the moment when we're not sure what we want, it feels like a forever to make that decision or to find that thing. And then when you finally get it and you get moving with it, you think now you're like, my God, that's been 4 years. It feels like 4 months.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That is definitely how it's been. You like moving to South Dakota. I thought South Dakota was going to be, that was going to be the end. I was just going to grow old there. And, turned out that my wife actually moved back to Pella, after before I did. And I was devastated when that happened, when I felt God calling me back to Pella. But really it's the best thing that has happened to me, and just seeing God's provision throughout the 4 years of business, and it's never been, there's been hard times and there's been very financially stressful times, but God's never left us high and dry. And
Yeah.
that's, if you're going to be in business, I mean, I don't know how I'd make it without, having the faith that I do. So
I 100% agree. And I've been reading this book by this doctor, and it's talking about like the frequencies and how be prepared when things go really well, because the universe has to balance out. Something bad's going, like something's going to break,
right.
or this is going to, like, it's not always a smooth ride up.
Mm-hmm.
And then this book's talking about the different frequencies, and kind of like what you're talking about with God there, but just having the desire and the willingness and the grit. Don't worry about the how, because sometimes he'll handle that for you, or the universe will handle, like whatever your beliefs are. Right. So,
yeah.
So sometimes you just have to have that blind faith in yourself and just persevere, and don't worry about the how. Just know that you're going to get it and see it.
Yeah. Yeah. I forget who had the quote, but I'll just claim it as my quote, because I say it enough. But it's like, three bad quick bad decisions are better than, one slow decision, because, if you're making rapid decisions, yeah, you're probably going to fail or you're going to make the wrong decision, but at least you're moving forward and at least you're learning and doing something, instead of just, oh, well, I'm just going to wait for stuff to happen.
Absolutely. Just a couple off that, right? Like imperfect action, take imperfect action, because nothing's ever perfect anyway.
Right.
So
exactly.
whatever you don't know, you'll figure it out along the way. And then 2, if you're going to fail fast, because then you can pivot and move to something new and get moving.
Exactly. So, and I mean, every failure that I've had in business, and we can get into some of those stories too. But every failure, I look at it as, if I'm learning from it and pivoting, it might just be like, oh, well, I lost a lot of money on this job. I need to pivot my prices a little bit. Every time I fail, I don't look at it that way, because if I pivot and I'm moving forward off that failure, I'm not that failure actually didn't lose me anything. It gained me, because now I can go do that same job over and over again. And every time I'll make money, because I had that experience where I failed and lost money. And so I know now what it takes to actually do that job.
Yeah. I mean, listen, man, education is not free.
No,
whether you write a check to the university or you learn it in the school of hard knocks and like in your business, but those lessons are not free.
Correct.
That's what makes you better at better as a person, better a business owner, better operator, all of it.
Yep. Amen.
Yeah. And sometimes the school of hard knocks, the tuition cost is a little bit higher than a university.
Yeah, but I seem to learn a lot better with the school of hard knocks than regular school.
I think everybody does. I just watched a video and it actually makes me sad for the state of affairs in this country. Mm-hmm. But this guy goes around to college universities and just asks basic questions to these college students.
I've seen that.
How many dimes are in $3? And they're like, 18. How many dimes are in $3? They're like 18. What's a quarter of an hour? And everyone says 25 minutes.
Yep. Yeah. No. Yeah. I mean, even like you tell people, let's meet 15 or quarter till 11 or whatever. And they don't even know what that is. Like, yeah, my wife included. Sorry. I probably shouldn't throw her on the bus like that. But,
she's going to listen to this.
Yeah. She's going to listen to it. I would be in the doghouse, but
yeah.
So,
yeah, I mean, I was at Panera the other day, and it was like $29. So I gave him 40, and then the guy I was with had some points, so it knocked it down to like $26. I'm like, oh, I've got $7, so give me 20 back. I'll give you 7. And the guy stared at me like I was speaking in Arabic.
Yeah. So one of the last times I went to McDonald's ever was we were going somewhere and we had to catch a bite to eat fast, and it was like $23 or $43, something like that. And I gave him $100 bill and then $3. And the guy, like the cashier literally like froze. Like, I'm not sure if she ever saw that much money in her life, or if that she just did not know what to do. Like, oh, he gave me, like, she tried to hand back the $3, and I was like,
I know.
no, I don't. Like,
I prefer 320s for change, not.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're like, huh?
Exactly. Yeah. And so she had to go get her manager, and it took her like 15 minutes. It took her like 15 minutes to figure it out. I'm like, man,
damn it. They deserve a raise though, Caleb.
I should have given them the debit card.
It's almost like that we've gotten so dumb as a society because we don't have to use any mental skills anymore. Everything's provided by a computer or a machine.
Yep.
It's like, man, if we're not heading to a cashless system, I don't know. I mean, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, and I'm not going to get into all that. But I mean, when the average person starts going, it's just easier to use my card.
Yeah.
Like this is when the shift happens.
Yeah, and it's funny to me because we're individually I feel like we're so much less intelligent as a society, but like the information is just so readily there on the internet. And I mean, I struggle with reading, but because of technology, I can listen to a book a week on Audible and have the same the same learning capacity, or even more, because I can listen to it faster than somebody who is a really good reader and that enjoys that. And so it's at any point of history, you're going to have the doers and you're going to have the people who just kind of ride life out. And I've never, for personal and for business, I've never wanted just to be me, average. I've always wanted to, leave a legacy and do the best I can. And I think that comes from my faith, but also comes from my dad. Really showed us how much, hard work, and my grandpa did too, growing up on the farm. And then my dad was a salesman and ended up buying the business that he worked for like 30 years. But just, showing me how to be a man and how to provide for your family. And yes, there's a balance to that. And did he get it right all the time? No, but there's just a core value that I see in a lot of kids my age and a lot of kids younger, that they don't have that value of hard work and provision. And really that's the core of being a man, is being able to provide for those who are around you.
Yeah. And I don't even know if they've ever had experience with that. So therefore they can't even develop it, whether if it's a value or not a value to them. Mm-hmm. I mean, kid has a runny nose today, and God forbid he gets the Kleenex. Mom has to do it for him.
Yeah. Yeah. They're not shown that. And I would say, even with the, there's a whole saying of like, well, millennials, they're lazy and blah, blah, blah. And the people who are saying that, and I'm not discing on generations here, but the people who are saying that are the ones that raise those kids. And it's just like, and with that, it's like, where's the personal responsibility? It's like, well, you made the nest that they're sleeping in, type of deal. And so I'm really grateful for parents that showed me hard work and being a man. What does that look like?
Yeah. This is off topic, but I just feel compelled to ask you, but like, I know you briefly touched on it, but like, what is like at the core of being a man? What does that feel to you? I know you talked about providing for family, but there's a lot more to it than that.
Right. So I would say if I had to do it or if I had to define it in one word, I would say it's provision, but it's not just financial provision. It's, there's a lot, and that's where I saw my dad, he was very good at, financially providing for our family, but there was other provisions that, a kid needs that he wasn't, that good with. And we've our relationships have grown and all that, but and you're never going to be perfect as a parent, but so like I would say it's that it's that provision of finances, yes, but also the emotional provision. And then kids get their identity through their dad. And so, instilling your kids with the identity, which is a type of provision. When people hear me say provision, they just automatically think money, but there's a lot more in that word than just financial.
Absolutely. And there's been a lot of studies that show kids learn by mimicking their environment.
Mm-hmm.
An example of that is like if you hate your wife and you guys fight every day, but you don't get divorced and you stay married.
Yep.
What that kid actually sees is yelling at my wife is normal for my marriage.
Yep. Yeah. So I have two kids, Wyatt, which he is 6, and Ivy is 4. And Wyatt, anything I do, he wants to do, and he meant it, just like you said. And so, he's got his excavators and his tractors lined up, and so it just, you see that even at the early stage, where, at our old house, we just moved, but at our old house, he had a giant sandbox, but all of his toys were always out of the sandbox and in the grass and digging up, the dirt. And you tell him, why are you taking the dirt and putting it on the sidewalk? Well, because I gotta get this job done. And good, bad, or indifferent, it reminded me a lot of myself and of course my dad. And so, it's that they're definitely a product of the environment that they grow up in.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of environment, you do a lot of land management CRP work, right?
Yeah. So we very early on, we started, my best friend growing up, his dad actually owns a prairie grass farm and Hoxie Native Seeds. And they shout out, they have a podcast called the Prairie Farm Podcast. So if you're interested in land management and kind of the that side of things, that's a great podcast to listen to. But which they've not had me on, so you got to me first. So
I love it.
I'm just putting that out there. Nick says it's because I couldn't talk an hour about environmental stuff and fake like I give a crap about it, but I give a crap about it, but I'm a very practical person. And so a lot of that environmentally stuff, it's like, well, this is what we need to do. And it's just like, well, yeah, but that's not like where we're at in a society that is not practical. And that'd be the death of us if we actually implemented some of the stuff that they want to. But I think it is our it's important for us to take care of what God's given us. And so, he doesn't ask us to have land dormant, but we also want to be able to pass that on to the next generation and leave it better than where we found it. But so very early on, when I was kind of getting started, and I figured out that I had some slow seasons, and so I wanted to get a little more diverse. And so I met with Nick and asked him if I could be a contract planner for them. So basically, they sell the CRP, which is the government program for set aside acres, and they sell the seed. They rent me the drill. I have my own tractor. And then I get paid so much per acre to plant seed for them. And then also that's kind of involved as we've marketed and stuff, where I have my own customers that I sell seed to. I get it wholesale from them, and then I mark it up, and then I'm able to plant the seed as well. So I kind of can make a little bit more money that way. And so that's kind of where that came out, is more of, I wanted to be a little bit more diverse in what we did. Because I knew COVID wasn't going to happen, it wasn't going to stay. And the COVID market is what I call it. I knew that wasn't going to stay forever. And so I was trying to be a little bit more diverse in what we were doing. So so if there was a downturn, we would be able to ride that out.
Nice. Curious, when you're doing contract planning for that CRP properties,
Yep.
how many other projects have you gotten hired to do by landowners just because you were on the property and you're able to develop a relationship with them?
Yep. So it's actually gone it's usually goes the other way where we'll be putting like a water line in for somebody, and they'll see our truck's wrapped and in a prairie theme, and they go, "Oh, you do CRP planting?" And I go, "Yeah," because I mean it's a very niche market where not a lot of people do it. Usually, in the past, the farmers have done it, but a lot of out-of-state landowners or landowners that have moved to the city or live in the city and just have a hunting farm, they don't have the tractor, they don't have the equipment to do it. So then they'll be like, "Oh, I have this 40 acres that need to be planted or whatever." And so I don't think we've ever gotten it the other way where we were planting for somebody and then they had us come back to do a water line or tiling. No, we have. There was a 3 acre pollinator that we planted, if it's not more than if it's 40 acres or more, that's kind of where we make our money, because the majority of the cost is just bringing the equipment to the field. So it was like a 3 acre pollinator mix. So I mean, I made probably a couple $100 on planting or whatever. And he just called us back this fall or the spring to fix a tiling issue, and it's going to turn into this big old tiling job with him and his neighbor and all this stuff. So I mean, is it easy to like say no to those little jobs, but sometimes they turn into a lot bigger jobs down the road. So
absolutely they do.
Treat everybody the same is kind of my philosophy on that.
Yeah, and it goes back to your core values, right? Like if you've got good, strong core values, then the dollar amount they're writing a check for is isn't as relevant to you.
Right. Yeah, you got to make money on it, but yeah. And do you make more money on bigger jobs? Probably, like per hour, just because you're not driving from field to field, but it all evens out in the end.
Yeah, absolutely. So underground utilities, and I'm going to assume that water drainage is probably your core service that you do, or do you do more utility work?
Yeah. So water management would be like water diversion and like tiling and basement waterproofing. So that's kind of the one of the big pillars that we do. And then the water lines or the livestock waters are the other pillar that we kind of do on the dirt work side and the excavation side. And then, obviously we got skid steers and that kind of stuff. And so, we'll do grading and stuff like that, but that's kind of really the two big things that we do and we market for. And the reason we market, we're kind of niche with our marketing is we found those jobs are the most profitable. And so if we market towards those jobs, we have the margin to spend money on marketing, for those jobs.
Absolutely. Do you run into an issue where customers don't understand you have to do education on what water management is?
So how we market it, we don't market it as like, you need water management, call DC Underground. We market it as more of like, do you have a water issue, or do you have a wet basement? Do you have, so we ask questions, and then if they scroll through Facebook and they go, "Oh, do you have a wet basement?" Yeah, I do. This wall is always wet or whatever. And then we go out there and we go, "Okay, where's the water coming from?" "Oh, it's coming from the floor. It's coming from the wall." Well, your drain tile, your footing drain is probably old clay and it's probably not working. And so then we'll need to dig that up. And while we're do that, it's beneficial to, re-waterproof your basement. That way the walls don't start leaking. And so there's a little bit of upsell there where what we can do, because it's like, hey, we're already digging right by the wall. It doesn't take much more to power wash those walls and get that all waterproof, so you don't have an issue down the road. So we don't really market it as water management. And so I think if we did, there'd be a lot of education. I don't think we'd be very successful.
I think the land clearing guys run into that problem because they're always promoting forestry mulching, and I don't think the average person has a clue what.
Yeah. And there's a little bit of forest like south of us, or timber, I should say. It's not really a forest, but, and so there's quite a bit of logging that comes from that. But, I would love to own a mulcher for our skid steer and do some of that, especially if we could get some government contracts. But, how do you market that? Because that's even more of a niche market, because you have a landowner, but then also a landowner that has timber, and then a landowner that has timber that wants it improved.
But and for what reason? Pasture, outbuilding, park setting. I mean, I think that's
land clearing. So then you get very diverse, and then the reasons why they want to do it, there's 5. So I've done a couple more mulching jobs in the past, but it's been like happenstance that people have found me, and I can go rent a mulcher from Des Moines, which is like 45 minutes away, and then also the people who want to spend that money, because it's probably $3 to $4 grand a day just to run a skid steer and a mulcher. And so when you tell the average Joe that, they kind of lose their mind.
Yeah. No, but I just think there's some niche is within excavation. And that was my example, was the, forestry mulching.
Yeah.
People that do it every day, it's part of their normal vernacular. That's how they talk. And I just look at drainage too. I feel like, we do drainage solutions for residential customers, and customers they say, oh, that's really nice. Because they're like, what? I don't know what that means.
Right. And so then when we market on Facebook or whatever, I don't use those words. I use, do you have a wet basement? Do you have a wet yard? Do you have, and then I might give them solutions. Like in that post, I might give them solutions for those problems, like grading, tiling, drainage ponds, that kind of stuff. But I'm never gonna start out with that and go, oh, do you need a drainage pond? Well, gosh, I don't know if I need a drainage pond. They're not going to know if they need that, and that helps because we'll work for anybody, but most of the time, if somebody knows what they need or what they do, they're not the nicest person to work with or for, and so it's the person who's going to respect your expertise and needs your expertise to get the job done. They're going to respect you. They're going to trust you. It's easier for them to trust you. And then also, then they're not going to be so cost conscious. They're just looking for the problem to be solved. They don't know how the problem can be solved. And so they don't know all the ins and outs. If somebody goes, oh, I need my basement waterproofed, you just have to dig here and put the tile here. And, they're going to be very cost conscious. And so how you market too can determine what types of clients you get, which can make those jobs go easier or more difficult as well.
So are you doing all of your marketing on Facebook? Like this little secret sauce that you have is all just you figured out different ways of promoting on Facebook?
So I kind of stumbled into it a little bit. So I mentioned previously that we did all for sale groups at the beginning. And then I was like, well, I kind of want more work. And so I started doing paid ads and got kind of good at it by myself. And then there's a guy on TikTok that he owns. It's called Dirt Work Marketing. And he provides a class, a Facebook ad class.
Yeah, he's been a guest before.
Yeah. And so I took that class, and um, they're in the works of building my website right now, and doing a couple other things for our marketing stuff. And so it's been, I learned it through the school of hard knocks, but also I've had some people that have helped me along the way.
So since you've taken a class and you're probably a little bit better than the average business owner in this
Right.
niche, just because you put a little extra effort into it. Are you building ads and managing all of those out of your your Meta business suite for your Facebook page? Or are you going into the actual ads manager and creating ads and targeted audiences that way?
Yeah, so a little bit of both, depends on the type of year, or time of the year, because if you're the more you target certain customers, the more money you're spending. And so like around like fall time, Christmas time, there's just financially there's no way to like target.
You can't compete with the big boys that are dropping massive ad budgets.
Yes, and so you're better off just doing like you're better off just not spending as much, but then doing a wide canvas. But like sometimes if we're like during the summer or the spring, if the dollar amount is right, we'll do a more targeted ad. So
when you're doing the more targeted ads, are you going into the actual Facebook ads manager?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, because I feel like the natural progression for business owners is they boost a post.
Yep.
They get a little bit of love from that. So they go, oh, I'm going to actually make an ad. Then they make an ad, and next thing you know, people from 4 states over going, hey, I'm seeing your ad.
Yeah, you have to.
Oh shit.
Facebook loves to do that because you'll do your targeted like 50 miles from Pella, Iowa, and then you'll get it all done and blah blah blah, and then you'll hit post, and then it'll say 50 miles from Pella, Iowa, and then once they approve it, it'll be like, oh, actually, it's the whole we want you to be on the whole United States. So it's not just user error, which it could be user error, but sometimes Facebook just likes to switch it on you.
Yeah, and they don't like I've never had that problem in Ads Manager though.
Yeah. No, I found for me boosting an organic post is more effective than creating a ad from scratch.
So you can actually take the post ID, because every post on Facebook has its own ID. You can paste that into Ads Manager, and it'll actually create the ad around that post.
Gotcha.
And it'll actually keep all the likes, comments, and everything.
Oh, okay.
On it.
That's all. Most of the time I do it on my iPad, so maybe it doesn't have that. Maybe I can't. I don't know. Sometimes it's different. Sometimes it's different on the iPad than on the laptop. But
yeah.
So, but no, I think other two is business owners. It's hard for them to drop $1,000 on Facebook ads, but the way I look at it is, if that $1,000 is going to generate you $50,000 worth of work, is it worth it? Or
it generates you $15,000. Like, what's the number?
Yeah, what's the number? What's the number? Does it make? And what they don't see too is, yeah, it might generate you $50,000 worth of work or $15,000 worth of work, but what's that? Advertising is compounding. So somebody might see your ad today, and they might call you 2 years from now with the job, and that job might be $50,000. It might be $100,000 job. This year, I had a daycare. They had 2 locations, and they needed a bunch of drainage work done. I want to say we did $60,000 in drainage work for this one daycare. It took us like a week to complete. But it's because this guy, the owner of the daycare, saw us run. He constantly saw us. He was constantly seeing, and I need to do a better job of that. Where what I do is, I don't spend money unless I need work. But if I would spend a little bit less money and do a constant ad, then I'm in front of mind of everybody I think that would work better. Or, if I need more work, I bump up the dollar amount, but I have a set price that no matter what, I'm spending $200-300 a week on Facebook ads just to be on front of mind of everybody.
Yeah. That's a big deal, especially as a small business. It's becoming consistent.
Yep.
Like we all ride that roller coaster ride, right? Like, hey, I'm busy
Yeah.
with work. I don't need any more. Turn the ads off. And then the work starts slowing down. Well, those ads need to mature.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And that's where I think people don't, they shut them off too quickly. Like where they go, oh, well, I spent this much money on Facebook ads and they didn't work. Well, it's like, well, are you doing it wrong? Or are you like, you have to play around with it. You got to play with what types of ads work for your business. And
I always ask a guy when he tells me that, I'm like, how many pictures or videos did you use? How many different ad descriptions or ad copy did you write? And how many headlines did you use? And then did you test all of them and then pick the top post with the head? And they're like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, that's like saying, hey, you're hot. You want to go out? And the girl's like, no. And then going, women suck. I'm never dating them. Like, no, you change your approach, right? Like you get turned down by women enough, you change your approach.
Right. Exactly.
Advertising is the same way. Like you just have to constantly be changing your approach. I think the easiest thing you can do is go back through your business Facebook page and scroll back for the last 2 years. What posts got the most likes, shares, comments? And say, oh, they like images like this. They like it when I word it like this. And then now you've got a framework to start building new posts and ads off of.
Yeah. Well, and another thing that we've been trying to do is whenever we post, we don't want to be selling. So
love it.
And then even to build on that, every time I boost a post or every time I run an ad, I don't want to be selling. And so we started sponsoring a couple of race teams at Knoxville. And so each race team did a Facebook post about welcoming us on their partnership. So I took those 2 photos and I put them in a post, and I said, hey, we know how important, because in Knoxville, I mean, the Knoxville Nationals, that's a huge part of Knoxville's economy around here. And so I just did a post like, hey, like we're excited to partner up with these 2 race teams. We know how important sprint car racing is to our community. And then I usually post. So I usually, when I boost something, I usually do it like 50-mile radius of our shop, because that's about an hour drive. And that's where we want to kind of work. And that catches Des Moines and some of the bigger metro areas. But this one, I just did Marion. I did Marion County and I did Jasper. I just did like the surround, like Marion County and then maybe Mahaska County. And that's all I did. And no, I did Knoxville. I did 10 miles from Knoxville and I did 10 miles from Pella. And that's all I did. And because I don't want to, the $300 I spent on that ad, I don't want business.
Doesn't mean anything to somebody 40 miles away as much.
Right. When I don't want business from that ad, I want people to know that I'm invested in the community and that I'm here to stay and that I care about the community that I live in. And so, and that means, and that, is it going to generate business eventually? Hopefully. But is that the number one goal to ad? No. And so I think a lot of times people look at advertising dollars and they need to see a return on their investment, which I do too. But sometimes you don't, just forget about that money. Like,
and I think the easiest way to do that, Caleb, and I want to just throw a quick disclaimer out there. If you're new in business and you're still getting your footing, do not sponsor anything.
No,
like that's branding dollar. Like do not sponsor anything. But for you, like now that you're established and you're looking at doing these like community focused sponsorships, ads, things of that nature, start figuring. And this is the easiest way for you that I've been able to do that. Separate your advertising from your branding.
Yep.
And then give your branding a budget
Yep.
Because you don't need to track it. It's just your brand.
Yep.
Right. Like if
That's
you want to
good.
sponsor
That's
that
good.
team and it fits your branding budget, cool, do it.
Yep.
Because there's no call to action. There is no, how did you hear about us on the forum? Like, you'll never know if that was just one of the 13 touch points it took to get him to call you, or it didn't do anything.
Yep.
But it's still important to always be visual in your community.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. And that's a shift that we've definitely done this year is, before it was always, okay, we needed to see that return. If I'm putting $1,000 in, I need to see $20,000 worth of work or whatever the number is. And when we would spend money and we wouldn't get work, well, that sucks. And now it's more of, okay, I'm not afraid to spend money on marketing, and I don't. The main goal of some of it isn't going to be to see an ROI, and so that is definitely a shift that we have done this year, and that since we're a little bit more mature in business, we can make that shift. But yeah, I would agree with you. If you're first year or first 2 years and you're barely making money and you're barely making payroll or whatever, yeah, don't drop $3,000 on advertising a sprint car. That's the stupidest thing you could probably do.
and I've seen it.
Yeah. Well, because it's because they're passionate about that, and they're passionate about, they like to go to the races and stuff. Well, that's cool. You can do that when you make money, but right now you're not making money, so you can't do that.
And listen, I've done some advertising things in the past strictly out of personal pride.
Yep.
And that's really what it boils down to, right? Like, oh,
yep.
I like this racing stuff. I want to go to the racetrack, and I want people to go, oh yeah, that's that guy that owns that excavation.
I want to be invited to the driver's suite and the victory lane. You win a championship, whatever, whatever it is.
Yeah. I mean, when I owned the bar back in the early 2000s, I don't know how many thousands of dollars I paid to have this band play at our place on like a Tuesday night. I knew we weren't going to make, I knew I was losing money.
Yep.
But I love the band, and I could be like, hey, I get a front, like I'm going to meet this guy. We're going to hang out with him, go to dinner, and he's going to play at my place. Mm-hmm. But I paid for it. Right.
Yep.
It was a total vanity hire.
Yep.
And I feel like some of the branding stuff, like sponsorships and that, especially when you're really young, that's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't do it. Do stuff that's going to move the needle, right now, because you have to do that. And when you get more mature, you can go and you can start looking at more legacy and more long-term.
Yep.
But
agreed.
You're never gonna see that. You're never gonna see that fruition if you are year 1, year 2, or whatever it is, and you can barely pay your bills, and now you're dropping money on. I don't
care if it's $300 for a baseball team sponsorship and T-shirts. Like,
right. That $300 can fill up your tank twice to go do jobs.
Right.
And so that is the hard part about small businesses is, the stuff that I'm talking about that works for me in my business right now. If somebody did that, if I even did that when I started my business, I probably wouldn't be here today. I wouldn't be my doors would be closed, and I'd be working, back at the factory. And so, the only person that knows what your business truly needs is going to be you, and you have to have that self-confidence in being able to make those decisions and being able to live with them. And when you don't make the right decision, pivoting fast, because the longer you sit in your mistake, the more costly it's going to be.
Yeah. And I'll be honest, I don't care if I was 10 years in business or 10 months in business. If I was struggling to get work and money was getting tight, there's 2 things I do tomorrow. Mm-hmm. 1, I have over 1,000 contacts in my phone. Mm-hmm. I would just start calling anybody and everybody, and I wouldn't beg them for work. I'd start solving their problems.
Yep.
Right. And number 2, anywhere I've done work in the past, I'd go back and look at all my records, and I'd see clusters of areas that I've worked, and I'd go knock on everyone's door in those neighborhoods, in those areas.
Yep. Yep.
Because you got time and you got money. And if I ain't got no money, I got plenty of time to make calls and knock on doors.
Yep. Well, and that's what I'll do is if we start, we like to stay about 2 weeks out worth of work. And right now we're a little bit further out with that because we have CRP planting that has to get done by July 1st. So we have a little, it's abnormal for us to have, 3-4 weeks worth of work, but that's what we've been running with this spring because of all the rain and CRP planting. And the reason I want 2 weeks worth of work is because I feel like when people call me and I say, hey, I'm 2 weeks out, they're okay with that. If I say I'm a month out or I'm a month and a half, I'm 2 months, they're hanging up. And so why even bother being that far out with the work?
And Caleb, here's the crazy part about it. And this is the human psychology of people, right? Yeah. 1 week, awesome. 2 to 3 weeks, okay. 4 weeks, that's too far away. If you said I was available tomorrow, they would hesitate because it's partly like, why is he available tomorrow? How good is this guy? And the other part is, oh, I like to plan it out. Like I don't make decisions that fast. We just made the decision to do it. Yeah, but I'm ready for it in a week or two, not tomorrow.
Yeah.
So you have to have some work on the books to stop that pushback.
Yep.
But you can't. It's a fine line.
Yeah. And so when we start getting to be a week and a half out, I'll start running ads, but I'll also start going back into my contacts that I have given estimates and I haven't heard back from them. And I'll just call them and say, hey, this is Caleb from DC Underground. Just, I know people say just checking in is the worst thing, but I say it because I haven't found a better thing to say. So I just checking in, I know I bid work for you, and that follow up, because even if they say, no, we're good, it's like, wow, they really cared about that project that they bid on. And nobody else in our industry is following up with people. And also the rule of thumb I have is if I get somebody interested in work and wants me to come out and give them an estimate, I try my hardest to do that within a week. So if you call on a Tuesday and say, hey, Caleb, I need a water line put in my farm. I live on 123 Banana Street, and I need about 300 feet of water line. By next Tuesday, if I haven't come out to your place and given you an estimate, for sure set up an appointment saying, on this day, this time, I'm going out to so even if it's like 3 weeks out, because sometimes the customers aren't available or whatever, but at least setting up appointment of this is when we're going to be there to give you an estimate. But I try my hardest to do it within a week, because then it's fresh in their mind, and it just works better. Your conversion rate goes up when you go out there for an estimate immediately.
Oh, absolutely. It does.
So
and again, don't talk about the project right away. Get to know them.
Right. Get to know why they want the work done. What problem can you solve?
Yeah. And I mean, I use this example all the time. It was just because it just resonated with me. But the guy that was getting estimates on ponds, and at the end of the day, it wasn't about the pond. It was about the environment that made his grandkid want to come visit him.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was family time. It was family time. It wasn't the pond.
Yep. No, because if you know that part of it, then you know that he'll probably want a dock, that he wants, a beach area. And if you're just like, oh, well, you just need you just want water because, for your cattle, well, that's a completely different pond than a swimming pond.
Yeah. So it's just taking and understanding why they want even a basic driveway. Firm believer, it's what, $1,000, $1,500 job if it's nothing crazy. Regrade, maybe a couple tons of material. Why are they getting it done? Like nobody asked that question.
Yeah.
Maybe their kids coming home from the military and they're having a party and they want it to look good. Like you're not selling a nice driveway now. You're selling the entranceway to their home we just have to stop and ask, understand, take a minute to care.
Yeah. Yep. And building that relationship, because your business is built on relationships, whether that's
and don't have verbal diarrhea. about you and your business.
Yeah. Nobody gives a crap about that. I started with the trencher with my Dodge Dakota that had a bed frame welded onto the frame to keep it together. Nobody gives a crap.
Actually, Caleb, on this show, we do care. It's kind of
yeah. But the customers, they don't care. They care that their problem is getting solved or their dream is going to come to reality.
Well, customers will call Skid Steer Nation and they'll be like, "Hey, what can you tell me about that Dominator tree puller?" But I won't tell them a thing. So I'd be like, "What kind of work are you looking to do with it? Are you doing it for your personal use? Is it for business use? Like, give me some context." Because like the last thing I want to do is like, "Oh, it's got a 60-inch jaw opening and 2 3.5 by 8-inch cylinder." Like, now I'm just the used car salesman reading the spec sheet off the side of the window, and I don't want to be that guy.
Yeah, nobody.
But once you can determine why, like, why do you think this is the right tool? And it's like, why do you, like, sometimes customers call and say, "Hey, I want this done," and you get to the property and you're like, "Why do you think that's the right solution?"
Yep.
But you just got to take that time to build in. And I actually had to teach myself and write out a list of questions. And then at the bottom of the list was just like, do not tell them anything until these questions are answered. Yeah. As a reminder.
Yeah. I just had a customer and I'll be completely honest. I need to do better about what we were just talking about because I get in modes where I got 5 estimates to do and they're all half an hour apart. And I want to get home to my hot tub or whatever. And but there was just recently there was a customer and he had 2 other bids for the same job. And I stood with him on his yard and looked at his drainage issue and looked at his 3 of his neighbors' drainage issue. And they had a big drainage pond right behind all their houses. And I explained to him, what needed to be done and answered any of his questions. And I was the same price as, his other 2 estimates. And he texted me a half an hour after I left and said, before I even gave the estimate, he goes, "I'm going with you because of you caring and you walking me through it." And because what that tells the customer is you care about them, which is a huge part, but also you're educating them, which is building trust with the customer that you actually know what the heck you're doing.
And there's also the law of reciprocity, right? Like you're giving him education. Like people are, if you go give your friend a soda, he instantly ask you like what he can get you or do for you. Like it's
right.
We're programmed to give back.
And kind of a rabbit trail on that, people, they want to talk about price and they're going, well, am I competitive with my competition or whatever? And so there's a book that I read. It's like $100 million offer by
Alex Hormozi.
Yes. And that really changed my perspective on pricing. I've always been, kind of pushing the envelope on the highest price, but really that book taught me on how you can charge the higher price and still get, most of your work, because it's not about, you have the real value of, let's just say the job is $4,000. So that's a real value, it's going to cost them $4,000. But if you educate them in the estimating process and you're giving that information to them for free, well, your value add to that, your virtual value of that service has just gone up. And so maybe that person who spent 15 minutes just, oh yeah, you need this, and here's a $3,000 bid. Well, you might be at 4,000 and you still might be cheaper in the customer's mind because of all that value added that you gave them.
Yeah. And we preach the same thing at Groundbreaking Growth, calling it like value stacked estimates.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things. And again, it's the McDonald's effect. Guy works at McDonald's for a year. He just starts asking you if you want a number 4. And you're like, what the hell is a number 4? Because I don't work here. Like, oh, well, it's a quarter pounder with cheese, large Coke, and a large fry. Like, yeah, yes, that's what I want. So it's the same thing with these estimates. Don't label it number 4. Label out everything that comes with that number 4.
Yes.
And to go even farther on that, I talk about guarantees. And I get a lot of pushback like, oh man, like those guarantees. I'm like, well, if a customer called you in 45 days because there was a pothole that developed in their driveway, would you go fix it? Well, absolutely I would. I'm like, well, then you already guarantee your work.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of determining how many days you'll say yes to, and then writing that on the estimate to give them peace of mind that there's a guarantee on the work that you're providing for them.
Yeah. It's just like water lines. People thought I was crazy to give a 5-year no freeze, no leak guarantee on my water lines. And I go, they're like, well, you should just do 3 years. And I go, or 1 year, or whatever it was. And I said, when is it most likely to freeze? When is it most likely to leak? It's most likely to leak if the ground shifts from settling, because right as you dug it in, it ground shifts, puts extra pressure on the pipe, and it leaks. So that happens within the first year, most of the time. When is it most likely to freeze? Well, the first winter, because you likely have no cover on where that pipe is, and it might have settled. So then instead of being at 4 foot, you might be at 42 inches or whatever. So I said, if it doesn't freeze in the first year, and if it doesn't freeze in the first year and it doesn't have a leak in the first year, well, those extra 4 years, your risk is really not that much, because if somebody goes in there with a trencher and causes a leak, well, I'm not going to be liable for that anyway. And so for me, it's like the customer, 5 years, man, that's a lot of peace of mind. Like, oh my goodness, that's a huge value add. If I just said 1 year, well, what happens in 3 years? And so finding those things where, you could probably, and then if you offered a 5-year warranty, how much could you increase your price? And how much more risk is that to your company? Not a lot.
No, not at all. And we did the same thing with some septic companies. Like we started putting a 5-year guarantee, because it's a brand new tank.
Right.
So it excludes misuse. And the only way a tank's going to fail in the first 5 years is misuse.
Right.
If it's installed properly.
Correct. Yep. And so it's those, and I think it's too, is the guys that aren't doing a good job, that are just trying to get jobs done, and they don't care how they're not going to want to do a guarantee. And people who, like you were saying, they're already given a guarantee. They just don't know they are.
They don't verbalize it. They don't tell anybody.
Yeah.
Just tell them.
Yeah, we started doing in our estimates to kind of backtrack on the value stacking estimates. We used to just do tile, like 4-inch tiling, and it would be $4 a foot, and that would be what's on the estimate. And now I started doing, it would be 4-inch tile or 4-inch drainage tile installation, and then on the description it would go includes trenching, a rough backfill, drainage pipe, and labor to install it. And so then they go, because before they'd be looking at that $4 a foot and they'd be like, oh my goodness, that's a lot. or I don't know what they would be saying, but then you list out what all that includes. Well, $4 a foot, that's a steal. Like I get all these services and all this material for $4 a foot. Like, and I've been slowly starting to do that with all my line items, is instead of going, because I include my labor to install. So I don't just do materials. I include my labor to install that material in the material price. And so, but you have to verbalize that. Otherwise the customer's going, $15 for a downspout adapter. That's outrageous. I can buy one for $5. Well, that includes, the screws, the tape, the labor. And so like you have to verbalize that for the customer to understand what it all includes.
I'd be intrigued, Caleb, if you would be willing to try it just on the next couple smaller estimates. Just do total project price and don't break out anything. Still list everything out.
Yep.
Just don't put any prices on them.
Yep.
And just have one number at the bottom.
Yep. So you have your line items, but you just don't have your
no
cost
prices.
Yep.
And just do your project price at the bottom, because customers called you for a specific problem.
Yep.
All they want to know is how much is it going to cost and what do I get for that number?
Right.
They don't care about the shit in the middle. The shit in the middle just causes questions. Why is this piece $15?
Yep. No, I've gone back and forth to that, because I used to not show the prices per items, and I would just do a final. I would just do it. Well, I don't think I always did a number for that line item. I don't think so I'm going to try that. I am going to try that.
Yeah, just leave all your descriptions that you're putting in there and the detail.
Yep.
Just as descriptions, and then just have the number at the bottom.
Yep. Take the display options off.
Right. And then if there's some upgrade or upsells and all that, either create a second estimate to go with that, or like a disclosure line item saying optional.
Yeah.
This, for, optional downspout increase, whatever for $400, and just do this again, one price for the upsells.
Yep. No, I like that.
Yeah. I mean, because we always use the joke, right? Like if you went and got an oil change and the guy's like, well, it's $1 a quart or $1 an ounce. And you're like, whoa, that's expensive. Like, why is it so expensive? Like, well, I got to pay the guy, and now you got to justify it. You put yourself in a situation, you have to justify your costs, which is what you're doing with your line items.
Yeah.
But if a guy's like, hey, in and out in 20 minutes, complimentary tire check, complimentary washer fluid check, 37-point comprehensive, $120, like that's a bargain.
Yep.
It's more expensive than the $1 an ounce.
Right. No, that makes sense. I like that.
Yeah.
I'm going to try that. I'll let you know how it goes.
Yeah, man, please do. I always get intrigued by that. So if anyone else out there is listening and tries to do the value add single price project bid and it goes well, or if it doesn't go well, let me know.
Yep.
Man, this has been a great conversation.
Yeah, it has.
A lot of great topics. A couple takeaways just off the top of my head. I didn't take any notes or anything, but one of the big topics is you found a couple of unique niches and you continue to grow those niches and not diversify into more, services.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big key takeaway. Like just get really good at a couple things, and like you could advertise, like you do your drainage, you advertise different problems that drainage fixes instead of general drainage, and then saying, well, we need to add septics or we need to add that. One big takeaway there. Two, you're doing all of your paid advertising on Facebook, correct? That's what I'm taking away.
Yeah.
Same thing. Alex Hormozi says you can get to $1 million a month getting really good on one channel.
Yeah.
And I think for this industry, you can easily get to $500,000 a year if you just devote your attention into one marketing avenue, if it's the right one.
Right.
So you don't need to start doing TikTok ads and YouTube ads and Pinterest ads and
because if you try to do all those things, you're going to be average at best at all of them.
Right. So none of them are going to produce.
Right.
Yeah. So you took time and invested in yourself to learn and get better and to be able to handle those ads yourself. But you stayed in that lane. You stayed with Facebook. And again, so it's just, you have to give, like any plant you have, right? You put the seed in and you got to water it and nurture it to get it to grow.
Mm-hmm.
All you did was water and nurture it. And like these guys, like don't jump from, they talk about it with jobs too, right? Like when you quit a job and go to a new job, well, guess what? You get new job growing pains all over again because you didn't stick it with it long enough.
Yeah. Yep.
So those are the two big key takeaways. And my favorite takeaway personally was that you talked about moving back home because of the pain that you felt emotionally, not being near your family.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, man, everybody loves money until they're separated from the ones they love. And then all of a sudden money's like, not worth it.
Yep. Yeah. I was working for builders. I was making more money than I had in my entire life. I I was making more then than I am now. My salary for my business is less than what I was making 6 years ago working at Builders Electric.
Yeah. They say, man, they say the richest people are always the loneliest because you can't have your cake and eat it too.
Yep. Well, I'm trying to be both. So,
yeah. There's a difference between like wealthy and obscenely wealthy, and I think that's
true. That's true.
But yeah, because even hardworking middle class Americans, between second shifts or third shifts and overtime and all, like they're sacrificing that family for money.
Yep.
And then they're lonely when they're not with the family, or they're exhausted when they are with them.
Yep.
You got to find that balance, set those boundaries.
Definitely. Yeah. I tell my guys, I got a couple of guys working for me, and, they feel bad when they have to go do something, emergency with their family. And every time I tell them, there's more important things in life than money. And I think when you set your priorities, and nobody's going to be perfect at it, but you set your priorities and you stick with those, God's going to bless that, and he honors that. And so there's been certain things that we've chose to do as a business that may, make us less money, or on paper might not make sense, but the Lord covers the difference on that. So,
yeah, we have a 3-tiered system for our team. Business is number 3, man. Faith, family, business.
Yep.
And we've got one guy, he's like our creative director, and he actually does he does some speaking in his church. And so he'll have some retreats or getaways that they'll have to go on. And I give him time off and doesn't make him take vacation for it. Cause I'm like, it's number 1.
Yeah. And I mean,
guess what? He works like a son of a bitch.
Yeah.
In return.
Yeah. And your actions are going to be louder than your words. So like, if you're saying your core values and then he goes, hey, can I take this time off for this retreat for my church? And you go, yeah, you can, but that's going to be, out of your 2 weeks. Well, you haven't backed up your core values, and people see that.
Yeah. And like when another worker, another employee, I think one of their family members got sick and they had to go to the hospital and they were out of town and all that. They were all stressed out over money. I'm like, don't worry about it.
Yep.
Payroll time came around. They got paid in full, and they're like, I didn't expect that. I'm like, you didn't expect I think your dad, you didn't expect your dad to have a heart attack either. So life happens, man. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's one of my biggest joys in, everybody talks about the negatives about employees, like, oh, they're so unproductive and blah, blah, blah. But you get to be a blessing into their life. Like, not only does DC Underground can be a blessing to my family's life, but it could be a blessing to, the people that I have working under me. And, not everybody can. I don't think everybody can own a business. I think there's just a certain level of stress, and, you just have to have that grit and that push through. And I don't think that there is, not everybody has that, but you can, but that doesn't mean they don't still have dreams and aspirations for their life. And you can be that avenue that helps them achieve their dreams and their goals in life. And that, to me, that's the biggest, that has been the biggest reward for me in growing my business, is getting to that point of being able to have employees and being able to be a blessing to them. Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. I used to love, especially when my employees were local, when I owned those bars and restaurants, I used to just sit and look around and be like, wow, I put food on 40 people's mouths because they've got families, it's not just the employees.
Yep.
And then when we had 3 places, it did get a little overwhelming. We ended up having 3 places and 110 employees. And at that point I was like, holy shit, this is a lot of pressure.
Yeah. When when your payroll week is more than your annual income, then
Yeah, you're like, wow, this is getting to be a lot. And I was 27 years old. Talk about figuring it out as you go. Like,
no kidding. Yeah. No, yeah. So I think back to that is, you can either look at life as a glass half full or glass half empty. And, there's a lot of guys that around here that they own a business, but they're a one-man show. And you ask them, why don't you have any employees? You've been in business for 40 years or whatever. Well, employees are just a headache and blah, blah, blah. And they don't, it's like, yeah, you can look at that way, or you can look at it, employees are necessary for me to be able to grow and to scale and to have the freedom that I want. And so, yeah, do employees mess up? Do they create more stress? Yes, but do they create more opportunities for me to be home at 3:00 in the afternoon instead of at 7:00 at night? And for me, that's more important than the little bit more of a headache that they bring.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing is you have to remember a vast majority of business owners, especially in excavation, worked in the trades before they started the business.
Yep.
Right. And I would say, I'm going to guess 50% or more left because either an owner or a manager micromanaged the shit out of them.
And then they're micromanaging the shit out of their own employees.
So don't become the guy you hated. Do it different.
Yep. Amen.
Yeah. Do you know why he causes half the problems? Because he doesn't care because you micromanage him.
Yep.
Because you treat him like the cog in the wheel, not like the person he is. Like, you don't give him a voice.
Yep. No, that's all. That's spot on. That's spot on.
Or you hire the wrong person, because there's some bad hires out there.
Yeah, there is just some. And
yeah, but he's got 10 years experience in a skid steer. I'm like, yeah, but he's worked at 13 places. Like, that's the red flag. He's the problem.
Yeah, he hire fast, fire faster.
Yeah, amen, man. Amen. Who cares about the W-2s at the end of the year? Just do it.
Just do it. Yep.
Move on. Oh, yep. Caleb, man, thanks so much for sharing part of your day and joining the podcast, man. I've truly enjoyed our conversation today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. You guys, we'll put some information on Caleb in the show notes. If you want to reach out, tell him you learned anything or you resonate with him. I'm sure he'd love to hear from you. Don't forget, if you're looking for your next skid steer attachment, skidsteernation.com. That's actually what we do around here, is sell attachments. And our new print shop is open now. So you head over to skidsteernation.com, click on the print shop. We partnered with Dope Marketing. They're not into drugs. It actually stands for data on previous engagement. So it's data driven. That we now have a print shop. You get your business cards, flyers, brochures, door hangers, signs, yard signs. Just trying to centralize the tools and things you need as business owners, so you have more of a one source for that. So print shop is phase 1 of that. So Caleb, thanks again. And until next week, guys, stay cool, stay frosty, and make that money.